Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Fraud Boxer podcast. I have three people on here today that we're going to be having a long discussion about something that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time. We're going to be talking about recruiting today. And as a lot of people saw, I sourced some folks on the wonderful world of LinkedIn, which is everything to us. But I have three wonderful guests that we have whittled it down to that have been generous enough with their time. So I have Meg Hanna, Doug Rubenstein, and Audree Wadkins. So how is everybody doing today?
So far, so good.
Excellent.
Friday. It's exciting.
It is. It is a good day. I usually do half days on Fridays, so I have that luxury. So hope you guys get something like that too. If not, I hope you don't got too many hard calls today. So I wanted to talk a little bit about like how I met you guys. Let's start with you, Meg. How did I meet you?
I was referred to you from a post that you had made on LinkedIn.
Excellent. I do like to hear that my posts work. And then Doug, how about you? I think I reached out to you actually.
No, I guess the same because you told me that a friend of mine from actually middle school and then college had referred me to you. Then you reached out and so I trust her. So by osmosis and the transitive property, I guess I can trust you too.
Excellent. I appreciate that. And middle school and then college, huh? So was it planned? Like, did you guys stay in touch in the middle part there, or did?
No, she's a couple years older than me. It just so happened that we went to middle school together, and then when I went to visit the school, I was like, "Oh, hi, Sarah." So
that's great. That's super great. And Audree, how do I know you?
Unfortunately, we go way back. Just kidding. No, we have mutual friends, and we just so happen to be kind of in the same space and have a lot of the same interests. And so we've been staying connected just in terms of our careers. And then you reached out and said I should do this, and I was very unsure, but you made me feel comfortable about it. So
see, that's what I do. So you guys are all recruiters at your company. So if you could each kind of go through how you got into recruiting, and we'll start with you, Meg, and then we'll go Doug, and then we'll go Audree. How you got into recruiting, and then the company that you're at now, if you could.
Sure. So I was a bartender, and I had applied on LinkedIn for a entry-level recruiter role. And a year later, they called, and then I was recruited out 2 years later by Tech, who is my current company. And now here we are.
Excellent. And then Doug, how about you? How'd you get into recruiting?
My journey started in finance. So I was in finance for years. I was on the track to be in upper management, but I hated my life. And so, so I went to my HR business partner and I was like, listen, like I hate it here. And I don't like it any other place either. I don't want to be in this line of work anymore. What can I do? At the time I was with JP Morgan, and they were starting Advancing Black Leaders. And he got me an interview with them. They wanted me to do the same thing with that team that I was doing at the time. So I said, I don't want to do that. So I went back to him. I said, listen, thank you for getting me that interview, but I guess, I'll just have to figure out myself. And he said, listen, not to be selfish, but I'm about to take over the recruiting arm of the commercial bank. Do you want to work for me? So boom. So I had a sponsor there. So he basically said, if you make my reports look really nice, like you did for that team, in 6 months, I will make you a recruiter. And I have not turned back since then. So I've been at a couple companies since. I've moved over to PayPal. I went to this startup called Rippling. And now I'm at a bank called Manufacturers Bank, which also has a startup digital bank called Genius Bank. So that's where I'm at now.
I was actually just going to ask you if it's one of the online meta banks or if it's a brick and mortar bank. So good to know.
So both. I get a little bit of both.
Excellent. And I think we'll kind of talk about that. And then Audree, what about you?
I've been in retail for about 10 plus years, started in stores, kind of grew my way up, and then moved to a really small e-commerce brick and mortar store that I did a lot of their marketing, if you will. Mind you, it was a very small company, but I had a trusted friend who was also a mentor to me who, got me my first job, and she actually moved to Hot Topic, which is where I'm currently at. So I started in Box Lunch Stores, which is a new entity within the Hot Topic brand. First assistant manager for that.
That's
store.
Like Funko Pops and stuff, right? Is the Box Lunch just more the collectibles side, right?
Think of it like Hot Topic's older sister. Everything is a lot more elevated. The assortment is definitely different. I think a lot of us think of Hot Topic as, we were really into it when we were younger, but a lot of us, don't really grow out of those obsessions. So we've come up with products that makes more sense. It's not just like a graphic t-shirt, it's a button down that you can wear to work and it makes sense. But behind it is the philanthropy effort, which is really huge. And I know I'm kind of going off topic, but I am really passionate about philanthropy, which is kind of what got me into that organization. And my former mentor, she actually was promoted and she said, hey, my job opened up if you want to apply for it. And I did. And I have been absolutely obsessed with what I do. Similar to you, Jordan, I love to talk and I love to talk to people who are just as passionate. And within what I do at Hot Topic, we kind of just crave passionate people, which has made my job really fun.
As a still enjoying emo music person who went on the emo cruise last year, I spent a lot of money and a lot of time in Hot Topics in my years, my 23 years of being an emo. Real quick before we jump in, what do you guys each do for fun? Because I don't want this to be a super dry conversation. So what does everybody do for fun? Everybody, just whoever wants to dive in first, go for it.
I'll go. So depending on season, I'm a triathlete during 3/4 of the year. I'm a snowboarder in the summer or in the winter rather, and in the rest of the year I mountain bike too.
Wow, where do you live? Where are you located?
I live in northern Delaware, suburban Philadelphia.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot more. I do not activities like that. What about you, Doug?
So listen, I'm married and I have 2 kids. So I chase them around a bunch. They bring a lot of joy, but I'm a former college athlete, so I played basketball in college, and I don't know if you want to call it play basketball, but at least I try. So I'll do that. And listen, I'd love to travel. My money goes towards that. I want to see the world. I want to see every aspect of it, and I want to make friends in each place that I travel as well. So
that's good. Audree, I bet you that resonates with you. What about you though?
Yeah, definitely, Doug. I also love to travel. I recently started experimenting with solo travel, which is definitely not for everyone, but it has opened up my horizons. Concerts, which is very on brand for me working for Hot Topicing, but it's because I really do love shows. I think I have like maybe 15 lined up for this year, which I'm starting to run out of money. So I need to look at things to be obsessed with. And I guess something not too interesting, but I love TV shows. I am an absolute junkie for the trash television, and I don't care what anyone says. Jersey Shore, I can quote every single one. I know it's not impressive, but got to be real.
Well, thank you guys each for sharing a little piece of yourself. I'm sure that some of those things will come up in some of the conversations we're about to have. But let's talk about recruiting. So recruiting is a interesting word in a time like it is right now. We just went through the Great Resignation. We're going through this quiet quitting, and now people are talking about loud quitting. I see all these buzzwords on LinkedIn. Everybody's trying to scare everybody into something. But recruiting is not HR, right or wrong, because it's different, right?
The way that I like to describe it is it's the operations arm of HR. So we kind of make it happen and grow. Because we probably deal with finance a lot more. We deal with every single aspect of whatever organization we're in, because you never know who you're going to recruit for. But you also have a lot of time spent with finance, talking about budgets, talking about headcounts, right? So it's an operations job, but for me, it is still within HR, right? We're still dealing with sensitive information. We still are affecting people's lives, right? Every single day, they're meaning these candidates, their conversations with us are a lot more important than our conversations with them, because their lives can change, right? So I definitely keep that in mind. And to me, that is what human resources is, right? Like that is our capital. That is how why we get paid. And so I consider my job human resources for sure, even though I'm not I'm not doing any firing, I'm not doing anything like that, but I definitely consider it human resources.
And I almost feel like, from my vantage point, being in an agency, like HR does, writes all the policies and all of the compliance things and all the things that we are able to do. I'm able to do my job inside of those walls, right? But I am not great with policies or rules. So
I myself work at this company called iHerb. Not a lot of people in the US have heard of it, but we're very big outside of the US. And we have a pretty large tech presence as far as like how we do our job. So I was recruited to this company by an agency. So an agent reached out to me on behalf of iHerb, and he was someone that when he places people there, his company gets paid by placing people there. So they reached out because they were not having it. So there's two different types of HR. And Meg, you're at an agency, right, that does this sort of thing. And then both of you guys, Doug and Audree, are employees of your actual companies doing recruiting, right? Meg, can you kind of talk about like the differences on the agency side, and then we'll go to you guys on what it's like for a direct hire, if we could.
Yeah. So, well, I guess I would ask you to flesh that out a little bit more. Like, what specific do you want to know?
Yeah. So I think that there's a little bit of like, just what is it? Like, how does it work when an agency hires somebody? How does that work? How do you find your people? Like those sorts of things. Like, because I know like I use LinkedIn. I think everything that I've been recruited from lately has always been through LinkedIn. I would say the last 15 years. Like I would say the last 2011, so close to it. You know, we're getting 12 years. Well, 12 years.
Sure,
but
sure.
every job that I've got has come from LinkedIn and not anywhere else. You know, a little bit of word of mouth, but like adding the people, talking to the people on LinkedIn. I know there's other things, and we'll talk about those other tools in a little bit here, because I think like Audree, I think you use some of the other tools sometimes too. But the agency side is different because a company reaches out to you and says, "I need this person," right? And then you have to go in and try and find those people. And then what happens? Like, how does that work? Like, you just turn them over to the things. I know how it worked for me when I was agency recruited, but I don't know any of the behind the scenes. So maybe if you could demystify some of that for us.
Sure. I think it just depends. Like, you know, we do both contract, statement of work kind of, consultants, and we also do direct. Yeah, right. Well, not like 6 to 18 months, right? But we also do direct placement. But I would say that the contract portion of our business is the larger portion of our business for sure. And so I have account managers across the country that I support that go to organizations, Fortune 500s, and builds relationships with me specifically. I support risk and security. So we're building relationships with the chief information security officer or the chief risk officer, and helping organizations build out their needs in those respective pillars.
And is there like, do agencies that hire you guys, do they typically not have recruiting departments, or do you guys have an expertise that is unique to your organization, or a pool of people that is unique to your organization?
We are at TEKsystems. We are highly specialized recruiters. So like I said, I focus on recruiting cybersecurity professionals within risk and security. We provide services to CISOs to help address certain cybersecurity, identity management, risk, and compliance specific initiatives. Ask me to recruit anything else, and I'm dumb. Like I can't do it.
It is cybersecurity people are pretty. There's only a few of us out there. You know, they're growing. I went to RSA and there was a lot of people, but finding the good ones is the trick.
And that's what makes me different, right? Is because I'm able to suss out red team versus blue team, for instance, right? And I can't do that for any other kind of development, though. So,
and do you yourself, like, or is it your company? Do you get paid on the people you place, or does your company get paid on the people you place, and only when they're there? How does that kind of work on those the contract ones?
Us specifically is like, for every hour, and most agencies, like for every hour that a consultant works, we get a certain.
Usually it's like double. Usually the billable rate is like double.
Well, but no, and that varies too, right? Across companies, across clients, right? So, but yeah, just definitely for every hour a consultant works, Tech is getting paid per hour too.
Okay, yeah, because I think when I got direct placed, I had to work there. I think 3 or 6 months. Like I had to stay there I stay here at iHerb. Well, obviously I'm still here almost 2 years in, but I had to stay here before that executive recruiter that got me placed there got his money. That way, I guess, like you can't place people, I would assume, and then they just quit the next day and you just churn the systems. Probably some little security things in place there, that sort of thing.
I mean, yes, that's secured, like all the functional things, right? But like, by the time I put a candidate in front of a client, I have a relationship with not only the candidate, but the client, right? So like my reputation is on the line too. So and larger at Tech, our reputation is on the line also. So like the last thing I would want to do is ask you to stay for 3 months just so that we can get paid and then like quit, right? Like, because that soils the relationship with my client, right?
Yeah,
and
that makes sense.
It partially soils the relationship with my candidate too. So
that makes sense. What about direct? So Doug and Audree, Doug, we'll start with you on this one. Like direct recruiting, have you always done direct recruiting since you've been a recruiter? Do you guys use agencies? Do you ever source candidates from agencies or anything like that yourselves?
So I've never used an agency personally. The companies I've worked for, every company has used agencies before. I think that agencies get called when there's like a real big hiring push and it's just more work than recruiters, right?
Okay, that makes sense.
So that happens. Number two, if a role is particularly specialized or very hard, and maybe the company does not have the expertise there. So, like if my company is not good at cybersecurity, maybe we hit up Meg, right? But those would be the only times that's happened. Like I said, for my roles, I don't know, maybe I'm very competitive. I'm gonna find
there's that collegiate
right, like so I've never had a role where I needed to give it away or bring in reinforcements. But it does happen. The company that I'm with currently is very small and growing, right?
Yeah.
Before they brought me in, there was a lot of agency usage, and in fact my manager calls me the agency killer, because like it costs a lot of money. Like agencies are worth it, but it's a lot of money, right? So in-house saves a lot of money for whatever company has the in-house recruiter, as long as you're able to get those hires and have retention, right? So
the retention, and we'll probably talk about that retention thing in a little bit. Audree, what about you?
Yeah, so I never worked for an agency, but I worked very, very closely with them when I started at Hot Topic, which as a recruiting coordinator, you would handle any of the temp roles, whether it was a month, whether it was 2 months, whether it was just for a holiday. So I did make a lot of really great relationships with the agency recruiters, and they are hustlers. Meg, mad respect. They are going after it every single day. But I do think that for the most part, for us, we do have a full in-house recruiting team. So it's never made sense for us to go to an agency for a full-time hire when we have people on the ground. It really has only been for, if finance only approves someone for 2 weeks or 2 months, we're obviously not going to hire someone, if we don't know for sure that they're going to be here long term. So it's really just like short stints, if anything. But overall, I mean, it's not my preferred method either. I'm with Doug on that. I'd rather, go after it myself. But at the end of the day, I'd rather do an agency for someone who needs to only be here for a couple months, and then hopefully they get, converted to.
Excellent. So while we're going to stay with you, Audree, let's talk about your guys' personal style. So everybody has, I'm sure, their own unique way. Doug, you said you're going to win at all costs, and we'll come right back to you on that one. But Audree, let's start with you. What is your style when let's say you get a new position that you're told to recruit for? So what do you do? How do you do it?
Yeah, I think I've been really lucky to work with great business partners here. So being really not only transparent with them, but also personable. I want them to trust me. I want to trust them. I want them to know that I've, done this for a long time, or I have people in the pipeline. So it's giving them those expectations up front, like, hey, this is where we're at in the market. This is where our budget is. We have to look at these types of people. We have to rethink what we need and what we're able to train for. And then taking that over into actually talking to candidates. You can probably tell I'm a very casual person. That's just who I am as a person. It's resonated really well with just the organization that I work for. We're Hot Topic Inc. We sell the pops and t-shirts. We're not curing anything crazy over on our end. So it really is just making sure that it feels like that from the jump, because I do think it's important to understand that from a candidate perspective, this might be their dream job. They're super stoked to talk to you. That they grew up with Hot Topic, or they've been a fan for so long.
That's a really good point.
I don't want them to feel at the end of the day that just because maybe it doesn't work out, maybe they do go with someone differently. I still want them to have a good experience and give them that up front. Like, hey, what's the feedback you have for me? Well, I love your energy, but we need a couple more years of Excel experience. At the end of the day, it's going to be really hard for a team that moves really fast to get you up and running. But don't feel like this is the end. It's all good. Like, I love to revisit past candidates and just make sure that they feel connected. Because I mean, that's gotta suck, right? I mean, if you call someone and you say, hey, it doesn't work out, they're going to be bummed. But I think that's the hardest part of our job is we have to hurt someone's feelings. I mean, at the end of the day, and that's what sucks.
Real quick on that part, do you call all of your no's?
I call everyone. So it depends. So we go from phone screen, then we go to presentation to the team, and then we bring them either on site or virtual interviews. Anyone that goes to the hiring team, I call every single person to release.
Wow.
You will not catch me sending an email, but with phone screen, it's a little different. It's only that first 25 minutes. So I do release via email, but everyone else gets called.
Wow. That's impressive. We'll come back to that maybe in a little bit because I might want to know more. Doug, you win at all costs. What does that look like?
So no, I don't win at all costs. Okay, I win. Okay, like, that's it.
There you go.
So I want to put that out there. There's no cheating. There's no I'm not lying. I'm like we're gonna make it work. I'm a good recruiter because I'm a good recruiter. So my style. Listen, the most important thing that a recruiter can do is understand the job. I have a leg up on most people in finance recruiting because I did this work. Right. So I have 14 years, under my belt of doing finance. So 9 times out of 10, I have experienced a job, worked tangentially with that job, or literally did the job myself. So that helps. However, if there is, but I need to have that intake call with the hiring manager to make sure that I know exactly what the role is, what they're going to be doing, what can be expected. And in that call, I make a friend, right? Very important to have those relationships with your clients because I want them to slip up and tell me something. You know what I mean? Like I want to get to know as much as I can. So then I can because I'm a very transparent recruiter as well. I will tell a candidate, this is not going to work out for you for this reason. Or this role isn't the best. Let's see what you think of this role, right? And so you can't do that without really understanding the job, understanding the hiring manager. So that's the first thing that I do as far as my style. I try to spend as much time with the hiring manager as possible. Then I'm sourcing and doing my pre-screens, right? These pre-screens, again, I try to make a friend, right? I want them to feel very comfortable with me, again, so they feel like they can tell me whatever they want to tell me, right? Because I'm assessing as much as I can. It's very easy. Let me roll that back. Candidates are on their best behavior when they speak to us.
Oh yeah.
It is their first, they're showing out for the first time with these companies or with your agency or whatever the case may be. This is what they're doing, right? And so I want to get them very comfortable so I can try to get the most real person that I can find.
The authentic self.
Then when I am giving my assessment and giving my recommendations to the hiring manager as far as who we want to move forward or not, when we have those debriefs, I can give the best information possible. Right.
I always have a tricky time with like what it is, you want to convey like your knowledge, but you also want to convey like who you are as a person. And I feel like sometimes when I'm on some of like the screen calls, they only care about the knowledge. I'm the last like probably 2 that I've done, I'm pretty fortunate where like the screener was like, hey, I don't know a whole lot about this fraud prevention payments roles. Like I honestly, I don't know. So like, you tell me, what does this mean? And that's a different way that like it was approached for me on like, especially on the last one, which was, it allowed me like to have my walls to come down a little bit instead of trying to be like all like, it's like, oh, let me tell you, this is what it is. This is probably what they're going to look for. You could go and ask them if that's what they're looking for. And it made the whole situation a little different. So yeah. Meg, what about you? What's your style?
So 2 things you need to know about me is 1, I am a go-getter shark, so I resonate with the both of you. But also I'm a huge Brene Brown fan, right? So like I'm a nerd in that respect. So I utilize everything that Brene has taught me to like meet people where they are. So that plus I feel like I'm a matchmaker in my job, right? I have a whole bunch of candidates and a whole bunch of clients and like, let's see where we can make a match. So I too am super personable, super transparent. And I also, the way I approach a candidate, just a pre-screen call is like, listen, we're just two people having a conversation, just two friends having a conversation. Tell me about yourself and tell me about the work that you do. And I'll allow them, give them a space to like geek out, because if they don't love it, like that's a red flag for me, right? Like, so yeah, that's kind of just my personal style, is meeting people where they are and allowing them to talk about themselves in the best way possible.
All right. So let's talk about, and Meg, we'll stay with you on this one. Let's talk about where you guys find these candidates. Because I think we all see late night TV commercials for Indeed. Indeed You Do, they always say, I need to hire Indeed You Do. All the YouTube videos we all watch, they all talk about ZipRecruiter, you know, like there's a ton of marketing that they're throwing out. I have personally used like the Indeed and the ZipRecruiters, and I felt, and this is just my personal feeling, that it's only trying to sell me something. That's all it's trying to do. It's like Tinder for jobs. It's trying to kind of just, I don't feel like the matches are going to be of quality. Like that's what I've always felt on it. Now, I don't know. I haven't used it in a number of years. I would say probably 10 years. But the last time I did, it felt really scammy and really ungenuine. Now, obviously, people are still using them, and I know a lot of people do. And they say they have AI and everything that matches the right candidates with the right roles. Great, everybody's got AI right now. But for me, like I said earlier, LinkedIn has been everything for me in my career. I feel like because I can see the people that are behind some of the postings, because I can see the people that do these jobs, I can see about their lives, I can see where they came from, I can see their schooling, I can see their hobbies and those sorts of things if they choose to list it. That social media aspect of LinkedIn has been very useful for me to know what's bullshit and what's not. So Meg, let's start with you. What do you use? Why does it work for you?
So in 7 years of recruiting, I have always used LinkedIn. I sit there probably 7 hours a day, honestly.
Me too, and I don't even recruit.
I mean, I get paid to do it, so. But yeah, I'm sitting on LinkedIn 7 hours a day. The LinkedIn recruiter license is 1,000% worth the money. And I honestly, I've always been a national recruiter. I've always supported the entire country. So I've never had the opportunity to meet with candidates face to face, right? And so being able to, I think that's the trade-off, is that I don't get to meet with people face to face and take people out to lunch, but I do get to talk to really cool folks at really cool companies in California and the Pacific Northwest, and learn about all the really fun stuff that they're doing. And I don't think I would be able to do that without LinkedIn.
Excellent. Geez, we're going to turn this into a LinkedIn commercial here pretty soon. I'm going to hit them up for sponsorship. Doug, what about you? What tools do you use?
So throughout my career, I've been very lucky. Like my companies, people applied to my companies. So the applicant tracking system, going through those resumes, probably has accounted for, I would say, 66% of my hires. Right. I also take that seriously because people take their time to read those job descriptions and apply. Some people just go and apply willy-nilly. We do know that, right? Like, you see the same name 17 times for 17 different jobs, right? But but if people take their time to apply to jobs, I want to look at their applications and not just go only on LinkedIn or anywhere else to source, right? But for those times when I do need to outwardly source, LinkedIn is the first go-to, right? Just because it's easy and it's probably the best platform that there is right now. But I also, and this is me, right? I will literally put something on Twitter and say, I need this person with this skill set. Where's it at?
Interesting. So you use the actual Twitter, huh? Wow.
I'll literally just put it right on Twitter. I need somebody with this skill set in this area. Does it exist? Do you exist? Right? You'll see that, I used to do that pretty often, actually, with my last position. And I will find that person and be able to talk to them. Will they always be like the person we hire? No, I probably hired about 20 people off of Twitter. Just by my network is vast.
That is fascinating.
I was going to say, I see both of you guys go and start asking each other questions. Let's do it.
Right? Listen, Have you ever seen Twitter be like, you know, when they say Twitter do your thing, and then they find that person, they find that like wrongdoer? Same thing happens with jobs. Yo, my friend does that. My friend of a friend does that. And they are looking for a job, right? You might not have the whole world doing it, but if you have a good 100 people who see that tweet, and there's 6 people who are in their network, they have somebody there, you might have somebody in your DM within a day and a half, and boom, right? And the difference there is that person is looking, they're actively seeking, as opposed to on LinkedIn, we seek them. Like we are infringing upon their lives the majority of the time. We're like, hey, do you like my company? Come talk to my company. I got a good job for you, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? And so they have to choose us back. Whereas this one, I'm usually receiving something and I can kind of just sit and wait. That's been a really cool aspect. Now, also the third part is like conventions. Like I go to Afrotech every year and I definitely get a bunch of hires there. Latinas in Tech has a conference every year as well. You never, like you go there and you meet people and you never know the resume you're going to get. So that also works and is a good way. And even Meg, you too, like you might be able to go to these conferences and then meet your people in person a little bit like that, so it's a cool aspect.
Audrey, you're up.
I'm still tripping about the Twitter thing.
I mean,
I would have never thought to use that. Do you use hashtags? How does it reach the right people?
Nah, you put it out there. I have 3,000 followers or almost 4,000 followers, and it gets retweeted to the right person. It doesn't work every time, right? I'm not saying like I'm this Twitter whisperer, right? But you get enough people, you put it out there. If I have put 50 tweets out there, right? Like out of all my tweets, I put, if I get 20 hires, like that's a pretty good percentage.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
I used it initially too, and it did work when I was in the PhD space.
Yeah, because PhDs love talking about their PhDs on Twitter, don't they? So
that's a fact.
Audrey, what tools do you use? Tell us all about them and Twitter.
Yeah. So I think, okay, so kind of separating both of this, and you'll understand why I was asking more about the Twitter, but I also do all the recruitment marketing for Hot Topicing. So anything that you see externally facing, whether it's in the stores, whether it's on LinkedIn, I do run the LinkedIn pages, all is usually me. So we recently expanded into new ideas because, we're thinking not only from a corporate standpoint, how to brand the job, but also from a store standpoint. So I recently partnered with our internal teams to do a TikTok campaign, which won't make sense for the corporate roles, but it did phenomenal for the stores as far as reach, as far as engagement. And that is something that I've never thought of for Twitter just because of where those candidates sit. But to kind of go off of that, so I think we all have favorite tools. We also have least favorite tools. I'm not going to say least favorite tools, but my favorite for corporate is definitely LinkedIn. When I talk to candidates, I ask, how did you hear about us? A lot of the times it's word of mouth. A lot of the times they're frequent visitors to the career site, but most of the time it's going to be LinkedIn. So I think meeting candidates halfway as well. We are a very niche demographic, if you will. So it's not all the time that people are going to apply to an accounts payable role thinking Hot Topic is that like go-to place for that. When it comes to merch roles, I do not have a hard time filling merchandise coordinators, product development positions, planning allocation, because they've likely worked in retail. They likely have some kind of connection to the brand. So I don't necessarily need to use tools, but when it becomes a little more back of the house, like finance, accounting, real estate, and construction, that's where I have to lean in on those. And sometimes at the end of the day, they're on Indeed, they're on Glassdoor, or they're looking in all those different areas, which aren't my favorite ones, but you have to go where they are. And that's how we utilize it. I would say Indeed would be something that I use pretty closely, but we also have distribution center recruiters who utilize ZipRecruiter, Indeed a little more closely. We do also have a tech recruiter, and she uses different avenues as well. Built-in is a recent one that we've experimented with that's been doing really well for us as far as getting candidates to kind of
like the magazine, like the online magazine.
Yeah.
One time I was in Built-in LA because I had the most insane commute in LA. It was 2.5 hours each way each day. So they featured me at one time. Yeah, it was. I did it for 7 months. It was not super great, but
Yeah, that's okay. That's insane. That's a weird feature to have, but I think the tools make sense for different spaces too. So overall, I can't say they're all bad, but I can see it from your perspective too, Jordan, that some of them do look really spammy, and we give that feedback.
I will say that these opinions are my own and not the opinions of any of my guests or their companies. So sorry indeed, because I know I have like 5 people that I know that work there. So sorry if they're listening to this.
It does what it needs to do. But
yeah, and you know, obviously people use it, people get jobs. Like I'm not saying like it's complete bullshit, you know. It's like people, it obviously works for people that it works on. And I think, you know, back in when I was unemployed and having a rough time when the economy was dead, 2010 and 2011, like I would use everything. Like I would put my resume on every single thing. Is Monster still a thing? Is that like still the company? Like I remember they were everything for a minute there.
It's around for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sad this
I was
a long time.
Kind of like to your point too, Jordan, with our store level employees, a lot of them are 16, 17, 18. This is their first time ever, you know, getting into the job industry. Their resumes are pretty flat, but the first thing that they're doing 100% of the time is they're going to Google, they're typing in jobs near me, and they're getting whatever ads are coming up. That's going to be Indeed, that's going to be ZipRecruiter. They're the ones putting the most money behind those advertisements. So those 16, 17-year-olds are going to go straight to that.
Yeah, they're not going to have a LinkedIn, are they?
No, not yet. But, and a lot of those ones create your resumes for you. You give some of those keywords and it almost makes it in-house. So that's where our store candidates are going to live. It's already built in. They go in, they press button, easy apply to like literally 55 jobs. So for us, it still is so important. I just, from a corporate standpoint, we don't have to utilize it as like a sourcing tool.
All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing what tools you use and how you do that. Let's kind of shift gears and kind of talk about recruiting lately. Now, this is something that I think is been fascinating since COVID. So I switched my company during COVID. I was at a company that was very much affected by COVID. Now, my personal role at that company was not affected by COVID, but I did take a pay cut during COVID. So, you know, I did my part, but I did switch jobs and I was part of what they call the Great Resignation. And I think everybody has heard that online, and we'll cover quiet quitting and all those sorts of things in a little bit. But the Great Resignation was obviously a time when people during COVID were jumping jobs, asking for a ton of money. There was just a ton of churn in the industry. They would just move around. Now, I think over the last like year and a half, we've had a lot more layoffs. It was kind of a fallout from those, like the companies overstaffing, especially e-commerce companies were having a lot of overstaffing issues. So let's kind of talk about your guys' opinion on the Great Resignation. What happened with that? What's changed in candidates from before to now? How do you approach it? What do you have to do? Do you have to front load money? All those sorts of things. And Doug, let's start with you on that one, if we could.
Well, first of all, I think the Great Resignation kept a lot of recruiters employed. So that was dope.
That's right? A good point.
But for me, I have never been... Okay, so as recruiters, we have a fiduciary responsibility towards our company. We want to make sure that we're staying under budget and all this, that, and the other, right? I don't really subscribe to that.
Okay.
I never have. I have always wanted to give my folks as much money as possible within the budget. Always. I think that's how you stay. I think that's the first step of retention, right? And that is the trust that they have with me as a recruiter and then as the company. One of the biggest things that happened with the Great Resignation, right, is that folks said, you know what? I don't need to sit here and do this anymore. And I'm sure I can make a lot more money right now. And so my recruiting style never changed because I was already on that time. I was never I worked for JP Morgan. They have more money than God. I was not trying to save $3,000. Like, that's just not how I was working. That's not how I was wired. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Same with PayPal. Right? Like, this is just not how I was wired. And so my recruiting style didn't change. What I think happened for hiring managers, on the other hand, is that I think prior to the Great Resignation, hiring managers wanted to see a lot more longevity at certain companies. Is this person going to be loyal to me? Is that like...
Does that even work?
Now it's like...
In this, in like, is that even working? Like the last 10 years, I feel people jump every 2 to 3 years. It should just kind of be expected, you know?
Yeah. And I think that for me, what I saw was that hiring managers have now really succumbed to the fact like, hey, I don't need somebody to work 5 years at a company anymore. I can trust that, going from company to company is just what the culture is. And I think the Great Resignation accelerated acceptance by hiring managers. So that's one of the biggest things that I saw that changed. But again, as far as my style and the money that was given out, and even the expectations on folks and the questions asked within pre-screens, et cetera, like I feel like the market caught up to my style, which is pretty cool. So,
well, there you go. Everybody go hit up Doug on LinkedIn and tell him you're looking for work, and he'll get you maximum money. It's coming your way. Meg, what about you? What did you see in the Great Resignation? What changed with that side?
I mean, I saw it go from a client market, like a customer's market, to a candidate market, and where the candidate had more say, more autonomy, right? I feel like more agency. And I think it's kind of leveled out now that, because everyone's squeezed financially, right? Customers, candidates, everyone's squeezed. But I also see a leveling out too of the squeeziness, because like we're getting used to what inflation is looking like in 2023, right? So yeah, that's what I saw over the past couple of years.
Audree, what'd you see? You went through it all.
I mean, it was definitely a little bit of everything. And mind you, too, being in retail, I think it's a very different candidate market. But at the end of the day, similar to Doug's point, I mean, we want to get them the most money. We really do. I mean, we're people too, and we know people have bills and things of that sort. But at the end of the day, for us, I love the underdog. I love when the underdog wins. The person who, they weren't really sure of at the very beginning, but I think that's where I started to change my views. I also do all of the early recruitment here at Hot Topicing, so all of our interns. So there's just like a very close connection that I have. And with those people, they don't have a lot of experience, but they're typically within budget. I mean, that's just kind of what it is. And how I've learned from that is that we can teach all of these different skills. We can teach someone how to do Excel. We can teach someone how to do a spreadsheet. But for Hot Topic, we can't just teach someone how to be a huge nerd. Like at the end of the day, that is totally ingrained. I don't know how Meg and Doug opened up their conversations, but one of the first things that I ask when I jump on a phone screen is, okay, what drew you to apply? What are your favorite fandoms? What do you geek out on? What are your favorite TV shows, movies? And you really develop a relationship there, and you can kind of tell, what is apparent to them, and how you both said as well, you get a personality. You when people talk about things that they're passionate about, similar to how we're all doing, people are stoked. Like there is a conversation that'll fly very easily. But at the end of the day, we still always are going to run into the money aspect of things, and that it is what it is. And we want to give them the most money, but we also want to be keeping the business in mind too. So we offer so many other things that hopefully kind of help with that.
So let's talk about that. That is next on the list, and I was hoping you were just going to transition it that way, and you did a great job of that for me. Let's talk about salary expectations. So how you guys approach it. Now, for me, obviously, salary is a huge concern. I love money. I just do. I think most people do. But also, I do look at long-term packages, like what else comes with my job? Like, what's my day going to look like? What's my stock going to look like? What does the PTO look like? I mean, I think a lot of people are doing FTO, which is, I have my own opinions about that. It's fine. What is any sort of like now with work from home, like what is like work from home stipends, like those sorts of things. So how do you guys approach salary? When do you approach salary? I think is really where I want to, like, do you start early? Do you wait till people are like all the way at the hiring manager has made that decision and then, okay, now we're going to talk money? Or do you just launch right into it right at the beginning? Because I will tell you right now, when people send me messages on LinkedIn asking if I'm interested, I straight tell them my salary expectations, and 99% of the time they're going to leave. So how do you guys approach that?
Yeah, I can jump in on this one really quick. And I think traditionally, a lot of people talk about salary at the end of the phone call. I mean, do you want to talk to them, make sure it makes sense? But with California pay being a transparent thing now, I don't know.
That's right.
I'm not sure what I know there's other states that do it because
I think New York does it too. I think Colorado
New York,
too.
I think Colorado, yeah. And so it's on there. But keeping in mind, I do a lot of the entry-level, associate-level manager position. So I typically don't have a lot of room in my budget, and I know what we're able to do, and I'm super real about it. So I want to talk about that in the first 5 minutes. So after we talk about fandoms and your favorite TV show and what's your favorite, character from Stranger Things. It's okay. I want to cover 2 different things. One of it is our hybrid schedule. Are you cool with this? It's 2 days in the office. Can you make the commute? A lot of the times it's yes. I recruit a lot from the LA area. That's the next thing. Okay, here's our compensation range. What do you think? I know you have bills to pay. Does this make sense for you? I'm going to be super honest. I don't have any wiggle room in the salary. However, I'm going to tell you right now, Hot Topic is a great place to work. These are the reasons. It's more than just benefits, compensation. It's the people that you work with. It's the longevity that we have here, the growth opportunities, learning and development. And I say that all, and being honest too. I know culture right now, saying culture from a corporate standpoint is kind of a joke. I see it on TikTok all the time. That's another thing. But, there really is something special here, and people don't know that until they come into the doors, and I always have to make sure that that's brought up too. So
I did my whole last episode, like we divert out into what culture means and why we pick jobs and what culture are. So anybody go listen to the episode with Bridget Corney. We talk about culture there and what it means. So yeah. Doug, what about you? What about salary? How do you do salaries? And then Meg, you're up next, so get ready. You're on deck.
So in the middle of our phone call is usually when we talk salary. First thing I do is I have to introduce the company because nobody knows what the company is. In fact, we just launched our first product last month. So when I ask, what do you know about Genius Bank? And I get a really long-winded answer, I know I'm probably not going to hire this person because there's not nearly that much information out there, right? All that being said, so I introduce the company, I introduce the job, I get to know the person a little bit, and then we go into kind of HR questions, i.e. Work authorization, and then into salary as well. When I ask, I always ask, what are you looking for? And then everybody's like, oh, what's the range, right? And I'm like, listen, I have a range. I have a spreadsheet in front of me, and I'm not going to go off of this spreadsheet. This is your chance to shine. What do you want to make? I say it just like that, right? If they aren't forthcoming in the beginning. Once they let me know, I then let them know if we're aligned. I let them know what that range is, where we want to be, and then we keep going forward if we want to move forward. So I'm very transparent right in the beginning, because when we get to the end of this thing, this offer is going to go like that. I'm not like, you can ask for more. You get what you negotiate. Everybody listening, you get what you negotiate. However, when you're dealing with me, we're going to know early where we want to be, where the business wants to be. And I'm very upfront and transparent about that. And also another thing for me, and I say this often, is that I don't like to go first. I don't want to give my range first, and some recruiters don't always agree with me on this. But the thing is, I can't change what I'm going to say. What I'm going to say is right there in stone. I cannot go above the budget, and I will not go below the budget. But when you receive that, you can change what you think you want based off of what I say. And that's never good for anybody, because your bills don't change, your mortgage doesn't change, or your rent, or whatever the case may be. Your aspirations and what you're saving for does not change. And so you know what you want coming into it. At least you should. That's something you should think about before you start going into applying for jobs, because it's your job, not mine, right? Like, it's not my money to give, it's your money to make. So like, so I want to make sure that that's on the table from you. So then we can go back, and have a discussion about where we could be in the budget, and also, is this the right position for you? Like, because the other thing that happens, and I'll be done after this, other thing that happens, then I can educate after that. If you are completely off on the budget, then I can say, you know what, you're applying for the wrong jobs. You're seeing this associate here, but in reality, you want to be an executive director, right? If you go from tech to banking, or from banking to tech, there's different titles. And now I could be like, listen, you applied for the wrong title and a whole bunch of the wrong titles. It's not where you want to be financially. You need to be looking at these jobs. These are the roles that we have open here, or, go elsewhere and apply for these type of roles at these type of companies. So it allows me to do that as well.
So I usually go in, like, personally, I go in with, like, I know where I want to be. Like, if I'm ever looking, so I know exactly like where I want to be. And then I'm like, hey, are we here? Same thing. It's like, are we aligned or not? So Meg, what about you?
So because I talk to a ton of people every day, and I'm like cherry picking people as opposed to like having people come to me, right? Like, I always say, how much money are you looking for? And if I do get the pushback of, well, what's the range? I instantly give the range, because I don't want to waste nobody's time, right? Like if we're close, like if we align or are close to align, like cool, let's see if we can meet in the middle, right? But if it's like 30, 40, 50 grand off, I'm like, this is not the role for you. Like, let's just keep in touch until I have something that better suits your financial expectations.
Excellent. Yeah, I think I was at one once, and they were like, it was like 30 grand off, and I was just like, there's no compromise there. Like, that's just what it's gonna be. Like, I'm not gonna make less money than I was making before, you know. But I will say, like, the recruiter that got me here, he sent like just the most amazing LinkedIn message. It was all numbers. It was unnamed company, salary, bonus, stock, autonomy to hire, and and unlimited time off. And he's like, interested, question mark. And I was like, here's my phone number, go ahead and give me a call.
He did research on you. He knew exactly who he was talking about.
He knows all like shiny things.
Coincidence.
Hey, and it all worked out. Now I've been here a year and a half, you know, changing the world over here. So let's talk a little bit about interviews, because this is something for me personally that I have opinions about, and I'm going to say my opinions, and I could be wrong all day long, and that's just fine. But that's the point of me hosting the show and you guys being the experts, is there's too many damn interviews these days, and the interviews take too long. Even for regular positions, like I see and hear about people like at Subway, like 6 interviews. Why are there so many damn interviews? Like, what's going on these days, guys? So Meg, let's start with you on that. Tell me why there's so many damn interviews.
I mean, I can't tell you why. For me, each of my clients are different, right? And I had a client when I first started recruiting. They are amazing AI organization, right? But they did 6 rounds of Google Hangouts, hour-long Google Hangouts. And I was like, this feels gnarly. And now 7 years later, I'm able to say, oh, you're pushing for 3 rounds over the course of what, a month for a contract role? Like, people are going to roll by then. Like, let's get honest about what your expectations are and how we can facilitate, making it quicker, because people's time is precious and the organization's time is precious.
Yeah, I feel like if you're hiring for a role, wouldn't you want someone sitting in that seat like ASAP? Like, you have a need. Like,
and not for nothing, but the background check takes 2 weeks anyway. So, like, let's get this party started.
Yeah. Do you do it like, and that's another thing too, is like, do we need to background check people that like don't have access to sensitive information and don't have like a till in front of them? Like, do we need that? Yeah. Okay. You guys are the experts. All right. Yeah. All right, Doug, what about you? Why are there so many damn interviews?
I couldn't tell you the why, but I can tell you something that happened in one of my last companies. By the way, I agree with everything Meg just said, right? But there was that question that came up from upper management, like, why are we meeting with 6 people? So there was a transformation made, and then they said, you're not meeting with more than 3 people. VPs and above will meet with 3. Anything below VP will meet with 2 people, because we do not, like, we need to trust who's interviewing. Are the correct people interviewing is the question. Because
that's what, right? like the screen is supposed to get the right people through to the next round, right?
This is after the screen, right? After the screen, because they have to screen with us, because
screen doesn't count. Yeah, screen doesn't count.
That doesn't count. But as far as, but they said you're not going to be meeting with more than 3 people. We cannot do that anymore, because it's not a good candidate experience, right? Especially, listen, and for us, right? We got to go tell these people no after all that. Like, when you just met with 5 adults, you took 5 hours out away from your job, away from your family, right? Because generally speaking, especially in those higher levels, you're speaking with people who already have jobs. We're asking them to change. I recruited them. I told them how great this company was. They met with 5 people, and then I'm calling them like, hey, listen, dog, it's not going to work out. Maybe next time. Like, that's just, you know what I'm saying? Like, it sucks for us. But that happened, and I think that companies are actually kind of changing that now, right? I'm not seeing as.
Yeah, I haven't interviewed in almost 2 years, so.
Right. Yeah, and I think that a lot of companies have kind of realized, like, all that interviewing is kind of ridiculous. I think it started with like the Googles of the world and Facebooks, and I think there's kind of like, I don't know, it's a bit of a dick measuring contest as well. Yeah, right. Like,
that's kind of what it seems like. Is I will tell you right now, like, there's a major payment processor that's not JP Morgan, don't worry, that
it's cool. I'm good.
was trying to recruit me a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, before I started here. And I had like 8 interviews with like all the way up, like not like one level below the founders, you know, like these are like really smart people, but I'm talking 8. And then I had one more, they're like, just one more, just one more. I'm talking, this was over like probably 2-month period. And then they called me, or they emailed me 30 minutes before my final one and said, never mind, we're not going to go forward with this role. Like they closed the whole role. They didn't even do it. And I was like, you just fucking wasted my time, like so much of my time. And like, granted, there's other people that work at that company that I like a lot. So like, I won't shut them out completely. But like, if someone's like, this company's trying to do business with me, I'm going to be like, they're kind of dick me around. Maybe it's my turn to pay a little payback on it. But yeah, that's the thing. So Audree, I see you have a ton of notes in our little thing here. So you have some
Okay.
opinions about this.
Yes, I think there's multiple layers here, and again, I handle a lot of early talent, so I think it's very different when you get executive and above. There's too many stakeholders. There's too much involved on the back end where you need the okay from all these different people. I don't know how that's sorted out, so I can't speak to it. But when it comes to early talent, we've definitely hit the nail on the head on how people should interview, how the group should work, how it should be spaced. We also developed an internal interview plan that we teach everyone on how to interview properly, from questions to ask, giving them guidance. This is how the layout is. And a lot of the times too, and Doug and Meg probably felt this as well, we're racing other companies. If they're moving faster in the interview process, we're already gone. Doesn't matter if we offer more, they're going to get the offer. They're going to say yes to that. And so that's where I tried to find a solid place in the middle. Okay, who needs to interview? It should be only the most important people, not people you just want opinions from, because at the end of the day, they're not going to be the ones working with them day in and day out. But also including, interview plans might be a little longer because they have test assessments. Product development does a week, gives a week turnaround for a full scale of, line sheets, and that takes a long time. So a lot of the times you're not only adding those into the interview plan, but also teams are interviewing 4 other people at the same time. And I don't know if Meg and Doug, you guys have a coordinator, but all of our recruiters actually schedule all of that. So, we're looking at everyone's schedules. Someone's out that day, someone's going on FTO, someone's going to be at San Diego Comic-Con. So we have to schedule around it, which a lot of the times makes the interview process longer just within time. But I don't think more than 2 people on an interview panel. I don't think we should have anything longer than an hour and a half in a one standing day interview plan. But I think a lot of people don't know, once it gets to the end of the interview process and you actually have to formally offer, for us personally, there's a lot more people still involved. I have to get approval from finance, from compensation. Our CEO actually reviews all of our offers and approves them. He's very
even early hires.
Yeah. So, and it's a good thing. He moves fast though. He is probably one of the best leaders that I've worked with. So nothing against that, but it's more so just I can't verbally offer until I have everything in front of me, whether I'm excited to tell them or not. I kind of give like, hey, good news are coming, just hang tight. But a lot of the times I can't handle, how fast someone approves an offer, or if they're on vacation for 2 weeks and there's no one to kind of help with that. So I think it's really up for us as recruiters to make sure that we're continuously communicating with candidates. I'm huge on that. It sounds like Doug and Meg are very much the same in that respect, which is awesome, because even if I don't have news, I'm going to give you an update. Hey, I don't have anything right now. Give me until Tuesday, and continuously kind of moving them forward so they know things are coming. Because coming back to my first point, where this might be their dream job, they're super stoked. I want to make sure that they're going to get good news. And if not, that they feel like they were, really supported throughout the entire process, because we're going to be advocates for them if they're the backup, or maybe like Doug said, if there's another role that makes sense down the line. So I don't know overall why they're long, but for us, there are some other things that people don't know about. So I think there is some stigma around it.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, you see all these like anti-work and work reform on Reddit. Everybody's talking about like, why is it taking me 8 months to get a job, at some entry level cashier job at a grocery store, So if anybody wonders, there's why. There's a bunch of people that might have to be signing off on it. I always think it's interesting. Like I at my role, I have budgets. Like, so I have a budget that I set for staff, and I set it every year, for hardware, for all the little things, so if someone leaves and I need to recruit, like I have this budget, approved. And as long as I'm within my budget, like I don't have to have like everybody sign off all the way up top, because I just feel like it's just so many layers to have to go up. Like, right. I just gave 2 raises to 2 of my staff, and that did have to go all the way to the top. And I was like, dang, I'm like, we have a lot of employees at this company, and he's got to go through all of these and approve all of these, when I had already CFO sign up. Like my boss works directly for the CFO. So like I'm in the conversation a lot with those people directly. So I usually be like, hey, you care if I give them an extra $1? Sure, go for it. Here's the email reply, and then off it goes. Feel like that's good enough, but somebody else got to sign off on it too. But
Yeah, I was going to say too, Jordan, you mentioned it earlier, as far as you want to get someone in the seat. Though I do believe that, I think it's so much more important that we find the right person for the role rather than
the right person in the seat. Okay.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it costs a lot of money for a mishire. It costs a ton. I'm not even going to give you the data on that, but for us to try and move quicker just to fill a seat when we could have waited maybe another 2 weeks to make sure we found someone who was not only perfect for the role, but also this was what they wanted to do, because we're advocating for the brand, but we're also advocating for the candidate. I want to make sure I'm putting them in the right spot. So a lot of the times that's how I think of it too, but other brands don't work like that. So they're just filling seats to fill them. But
you guys sound like you're also advocate for the candidate. Like, I like it. I picked the right people to be on here. I was hoping we are gonna have like one dissenting opinion that's like, no, get him as cheap as humanly possible. Well, I picked the right people. It's just what happens. I pick good people that have good intentions, and I don't get the contrasting opinion. That's okay, because I would prefer to run into you guys any day of the week than have somebody that's probably going to cheap out on this. Let's talk about the 3 trends that you guys are seeing. So I'm going to give each one of you guys, like, what's the number one trend in your recruiting world that you're seeing that's annoying you, or is a good thing, or just something that you're seeing. Just talk about it for a minute just to wrap this up, and then we'll let you guys go on with your day and call some more people and tell them good news. So Doug, we'll start with you on that.
All right, 3 trends. Number 1, wage transparency. I am seeing more people share their salaries with each other so others can understand what's in the market and what they can expect.
I like that.
I think that in decades and years prior, everybody thought everybody else made way more money than they did, and they don't, or made way less than they did, when in fact, no, you're really very average, right? So all of that I think that's really cool. I'm going to leave that as the good thing. The bad thing that I'm seeing now, I don't know if this is in recruiting, I don't know what this is, but this is on LinkedIn. I hate the posts on LinkedIn where it's like, I woke up this morning, paragraph. Then I walked and got my coffee, paragraph. Love yourself the most, and make sure that your job loves you, paragraph. Those posts are plentiful and everywhere, and I look at people's profiles and I avoid those people like the plague. If they were looking for one of my jobs, if you are applying to any of my jobs, make sure those are completely wiped from your profile, because those are very annoying. Anyway,
don't Facebook my LinkedIn.
Listen, I don't know. That's not even on Facebook. I don't know what that is. It is a pure
it's this
LinkedIn
positivity
culture
thing.
It's so weird. Nobody talks like that. Nobody writes like that except on LinkedIn. And it's not my favorite. Full stop.
It's so funny because it's like, and they have so many likes and they get so much interaction, and I don't understand it. Like, it's so mad because, like, when I first started this podcast and I was putting the little things out, it was like short to the point. Here's the link. Here's how to find it. Here's what the topic is, off. I would get 3,000-4,000 things. As soon as I started writing a book and throwing stupid emojis on everything, like 6,000, 8,000, 10,000 people on each post, I'm like, why? Like, this is, and I'm always like so angry about writing these things. I'm like, this is just like not who I am. It's not who I am, but it's the thing that stops people from scrolling. And I just started adding like a little thumbnail of like a trailer. So it's like when you're scrolling, it'll start playing like because it's all audio. So it's just like a static photo of everybody and it's the audio, but like it tripled my interaction on my post just by doing that one thing. Yeah, listen, and I'm like,
now that's fine, right? If you're promoting your thing and you see a video, like I kind of like the videos myself, but like I'm just talking about, I don't know, like this self-help. Everyone in the world is self-help guru. You get one job, all of a sudden you are now the job whisperer.
Meanwhile, they have their green circle open to work, but
literally still there, right? So it's just I guess it's the self. I don't know, gratification and putting themselves on a pedestal. That's the thing that I dislike about LinkedIn that is prevalent.
Meg, what about you?
Trends that I've seen is that there's like a war, right, between should you have that green light open to work on, and should you not? And like, I'm an agency recruiter, okay? Like, I talk to hundreds of people every week. If you want to turn that on, that will help me. So please turn it on.
You know where
like,
to stop scrolling,
no
when you're going down.
Yes, exactly. Like, please don't throw shade to folks that are trying to elevate themselves to get in my purview. Like, yeah, that's annoying.
Audree, what do you got?
Okay, I have three. I'll give the first two the good ones. One of them, I think after the Great Resignation, a lot more people became active on LinkedIn. I think people who have never touched it, never looked at it, and there's so much more out there now that maybe we weren't able to find before because they were at these companies for so long, which I've really enjoyed. Another one that I really liked is, and I don't know if this pertains to everyone, but there was a long time where people used this one resume template that you would Google, and it was the first one, and they always used it. And it has this blue border, and I could not stand it. I've been seeing that less and less. A lot more people are using, and whoever's listening, please use the one that Harvard created. That one is so easy to look at. It's great for the eyes for a recruiter. I've been seeing that a lot more, but there's this one, and I'm guilty. I used it when I was 16, so I can't even talk. But I've been seeing less of it, which has been really exciting. So I'm going to call that a trend. And then my last one I'll say is kind of off of what Doug was saying. It's the influencers of recruitment, and I see them on TikTok, and it drives me insane. And I know they mean well. It's because they want to help people. It's just they're in the same space that we're in, but some of the information is just so vastly not correct, or it's just very particular to their own space, and it just kind of makes the rest of us look like we're only in it to save money and it's not for the people. And I hate that. Because, like we talked about, we're all very much for the people. That's what our job is. But the TikTok influencers are driving me insane. And that's where a lot of our people are, too. So a lot of our store candidates are entry-level roles. I'm like, please stop listening to them.
I still don't TikTok. I still refuse. I'm holding out.
What are you on Reel? Are you on Instagram Reels?
I'm on Instagram. You see all my shit.
But are you on Reels? You're watching videos.
Oh, I don't push no Reels, but you know what I did last night? I made a account for the podcast, and it's gonna start pushing Reels automatically. So you're gonna start dealing with that. But all right, guys. Well, we are at time, and I want to thank you so much for jumping on this sight unseen, never having met me before, except for you, Audree, and doing a great episode. Like, thank you so much for your time. I know you guys have a lot of candidates that you got to get to, roles you got to fill. So thank you so much for giving me an hour and a half of your time. I really, really, really appreciate it. I will put links to all of your guys in the description of this, to your LinkedIn, to your companies. So if anybody is listening to this, likes what they're hearing, and wants to go see if there's any open roles at these companies, please feel free to visit them, check them out, add them, all the fun things. So thank you guys again. I really, really, really appreciate it.